Well, hello everyone, and it's Brad again, and I have this incredible pleasure today of spending a few minutes here with Stephanie McElwain, Chief Customer Officer of ACG, and we're going to have a very robust talk about what's going on in her world. So before I say anything else, Stephanie, say hello, introduce yourself, anything else you want to add to the opening.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Brad. It is a delight to be here. I am in this new role at ACG, which is the Association for Corporate Growth. We are an organization of mergers and acquisitions professionals, and my title of Chief Customer Officer is a new one for the organization, and it's definitely one that we're seeing more in large companies and small companies as well. So it's certainly a trend.
I definitely want to dive into the title, but before we do that, a little bit more about ACG. So, obviously, incredible work with the mergers, acquisitions, and that total space. But like, what type of membership base is it? How large is it? And where is everyone located?
Yeah. And our acronym really doesn't do us justice, right? So like, who are we? Who are these people? We are all of the people who make deals happen, right? I related a lot to a real estate transaction, right? You've got buyers and you've got sellers, right? In our instance, the buyers are private equity firms who have money that comes from different kinds of asset managers. And then you have companies who are also buyers of other companies, right? So they're on the buy side. And then you've got sellers, right? Companies who are growing, who are looking for some capital to keep that growth going or to innovate. So they need that capital in order to grow. And then you've got the intermediary. It's kind of like the real estate agent who sits in the middle. We have an investment banker, and that investment banker represents sometimes the buyer and sometimes the seller. And they're the ones who really understand the deal structures, and they bring these two parties together. So those are kind of our core members. Like, without them, deals don't happen. And if deals don't happen, we don't need everybody else. The other folks are really the people, kind of like a real estate transaction, that help get the deal across the finish line. So we have lenders, right, who might put in some debt into the deals as opposed to equity. We've got accountants and attorneys, right? You've got a deal, you've got some legal documents, you've got to have an attorney. You've got an accountant to help you really understand what it is that you're buying, right? They come in and they do the diligence on the deal. Are the financials really what they say they are? Or are there some things under here that we really need to uncover? So those are kinds of the people. And there's, of course, other consultants who are members who help those deals get across the finish line. But those are the folks who are members. And we have 61 chapters and networks around North America, as well as in Europe. We have 13,000 members, but we're probably serving about 100,000 customers, right? People who are coming through our doors to our events and consuming our content. If you think about like the private equity market in the United States, we represent about 48% of that deal flow. And it's about, think about it's about $760 billion of capital, which is it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of zeros. And for our members, they represent about 3,500 deals, and the markets are hot. So in some ways, it's very similar to what's going on in the real estate market. Prices are high. A lot of people want to buy. So it's a good time to be a seller. It's a hard time to be a buyer.
What an analogy. I mean, and it's fresh for me because I just bought this house a few months ago. So every one of those roles makes sense. So
exactly. I think it's an easy way for people to understand kind of who we are and what we do. It's not as complicated as some people make it seem.
Right. What an economic powerhouse. My goodness. That is a big number, that's for sure. Well, let's so I want to roll over. So I was immediately intrigued by your title, Chief Customer Officer. And it's a merging title. You are seeing it more and more, but I've never really heard like a great definition fully. So I'd love to get your feedback on that.
Yeah. Well, put me on the spot there.
Yeah.
So I think, when I first took this role, we kind of debated a lot. Should it be like the Chief Experience Officer, the Chief Membership Officer, or the Chief Customer Officer? And the genesis of the role largely came out of the SaaS world, right? Where someone had to be responsible for customer success, right? Because if your customers are successful, they're going to come back time and again, right? And someone has to be responsible for that. So Ours is a little different. We're a membership association. So in some ways, I do think that we're responsible for our customers' success. We help facilitate their success. We're not actually giving them a specific product. So I think that this role has a few kind of key factors that we think about, right? One is about the experience that your customers have with your products and services, and Chief Customer Officer is responsible for ensuring that it's the right experience that people are having, that everybody across your organization understands who your customers are and what their needs are. How do they consume your product? How do they feel about your product? What are their frustrations with your product? So driving that deep understanding so that anybody who interacts with your customer understands them and understands why they feel the way they feel and how you can make them feel better or do better.
I love what you said about make sure everyone understands, because I think it is critical to have your internal and your external stakeholders all understanding, what is that expectation and what do you want to create. And I also love the fact that experience officer, is actually rolled up underneath this, and it makes a lot of sense.
It is. And so I think part of my objective, right, is to have this very kind of deliberate and disciplined, valuable experience that members can take through their journey, that everything that we're doing for them is very purposeful and it meets what their needs are. And like the great Wayne Gretzky said, right, we have to figure out how to skate to where the puck is going. So it's not only our job to figure out what's going on with my customer today, but what are their challenges going to be next year and the following year and the following year? And how do we plan today to meet that future need, which I think is a big challenge. So part of the other piece of my role is innovation, continuing to understand, what our customers are going to need and planning those products and services today for the future. And what I'd like to say to the team is that, and I think this is largely true in associations, we kind of have one job, right? And our job is to make our members better at their jobs. Right? If I can make you more effective, more efficient, and more successful at doing your job, you'll come back to us every day. And so that's what we have to focus on. What is it that we do that makes you better at your job? And how can we keep doing that and do more of it?
Beautifully said, and an incredible mission. It's interesting. You mentioned about where the puck is going. And a couple of years ago, that puck was going all over the place.
Yes. It's been a rough ride. M&A has been on quite a roller coaster.
Well, and I'm curious. So you obviously deal making and bringing people together. These one-on-one incredible financial deals that are happening. Obviously, there's face-to-face. There's other types of connection. But I'd love to hear your thoughts around how do you set up the perfect scenario for that? What makes a successful event? And also, how did you deal with it during the virtual time?
Yeah, that was a hard one. It's interesting. Our business is very relationship based, right? People are doing deals that are valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. And so I want to know you. I want to meet you. I want to meet you in person. I want to have a meal with you, right? It's very relationship based. It's not just transactional. So I think, when the pandemic hit, we were all pretty sure that it was the end of time. Right. We were locking down to virtual, and how were we going to kind of innovate and continue to be relevant to our customer? And so kind of putting on that hat of we're here to make them better at their job and to make them efficient or effective. Everybody was so curious about what was happening in the M&A markets. Nobody knew what was happening, what was going on in every aspect of deal making. And so we quickly got together and put on a weekly series called What's Happening Now. And we would bring in the top experts to talk about every aspect of deal making and what they were seeing. It was changing. If you remember, we went from being fully open to completely shut down in a matter of days. And so the deal markets were changing just as quickly. So we did this weekly update for folks. And we were the first ones out of the gate. It gave them a connection to senior leaders and insight into what was happening in due diligence, in valuation, in negotiations, in letters of intent. And so that was really a great starting point for us to continue to have a relationship with our customers and become essential, right? So we became part of their every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. They joined this call to find out what was going on. And, this is classic for the customer, right? What they're happy with today and they're so delighted about, next month, you better find something better, right? Because somebody else is going to copy what you're doing. And so you need to be like one step ahead. And so we actually started doing this virtual deal sourcing where we started on Zoom and we put folks together in these one-on-one meetings, and we did it all manually. And people are like, this is the greatest thing ever. They hadn't seen anyone. And so we did that for a month, and then we had to innovate that and do something that was really focused on industries versus just generic get-togethers. And it really evolved a lot. I'm glad that we are at the end of it, and I'm happy to report that we were able to maintain some really great relationships with our customers during that whole process. And we're delighted to we have our big annual meeting at the end of this month. So we are at a record breaker right now. We are about 15% higher than our highest number ever. And we still have 3 weeks to go.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, so we're excited.
That's huge. That's huge because we're not seeing the numbers fully coming yet back. So that is really wonderful.
Yeah, the trends what we've seen so far is that people have been about 15% under. So we're hopeful that this kind of end of April timeframe, people feel like they're ready to get out. So we're excited.
When you were, going, like you started out in Zoom and then it's, things evolved and you were, in this virtual connection. I mean, any other tools that you worked with or anything that to really kind of create, even just keep going forward?
Yeah. So, ironically, before we even knew the pandemic was coming, we were working on building this new software tool with CSS. We called it ACG Access. Okay. And the thought was that this would be a great tool for our members to connect. So if you think about our members, right, if you get 1,000 people together in a room and there's 20 people you want to meet, right? It's like really hard to find those 20 people, right? So part of our job is to make sure that we're connecting the right people at the right time, and we're doing it efficiently and effectively. So we were building this this platform, ACG Access, which is a one-on-one meeting scheduling platform going into the pandemic, and it turned out to be a lifesaver. We were thinking that it could be an always-on scheduler, and then we would use it at live events. But the reality is, as the pandemic hit, we started to use it to have virtual meetings. And I told you, we started with our Zoom meetings, and then we started doing industry verticals, and then we launched ACG Access. And that allowed us to bring together people from, frankly, around the world who were interested in doing deals and talking about deals, could schedule one-on-one meetings and log into this platform. And then the meetings were actually hosted on the platform.
That's fantastic.
It was a lifesaver. Really,
it sounds like it. I mean, my gosh, but the fact that you were already working on this prior to, the shutting of everything, that step ahead and, all that innovation, and everyone was catching up, trying to figure out what they were going to do. So kudos to you. Kudos to you.
Yeah. And I will, guys, our events team was all over it. And I have to give a shout out to Ariel Dorsey, who is really the mastermind behind this platform with CSS, and really spending so much time focused on the customer and how they think about scheduling meetings, who they want to meet with, what are the criteria that they need to have in order to schedule an effective meeting, how long do the meetings have to be. So a lot of time and energy went into this, and then we continue to evolve it, frankly, and we're about to launch it live in person at Intergrowth at the end of April. And we just checked this morning. I think we have about 4,500 one-to-one meetings scheduled already.
Wow.
You've never seen so many people talk so much in your life.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, so I want to ask you to reach over on your shelf and pull out that beautiful crystal ball and make sure it's all dusted off. And I want us to look forward. So where's your industry headed? I mean, through, obviously lots going on this year, every year seems to get more and more intense. And then moving forward, where do you see the industry headed?
Yeah. So there are a lot of interesting dynamics going on in the markets and around the markets. Private equity, well, think about this, right? Interest rates are very low right now, although that could be changing. Because of that, right, for institutional investors like endowments, foundations, pensions to generate a really good return, a lot of them are investing more in private equity, right? That if they look at their portfolios, that's right, they have to earn money to return it to whoever they are helping. You know, if it's the pensions, it's the firefighters and the police and teachers. So they're investing more in private equity. So that means that there's more capital in the private equity markets. So there's more money chasing the same amount of deals, right? It's not like all of a sudden there's 3 times as many companies to buy or invest in. So again, kind of going back to that real estate market concept, what's happening is that there's so much capital, the prices for the acquisitions that they want to do are going up. So competition for deals is really up there. So that means that private equity investors have to specialize a little more. You want to stick to your knitting, right? You really want to focus on deals where you have some knowledge and experience. So private equity investors are more focused on specific industry niches than ever before. You know, if you've done 20 deals in industrial technology, you should probably stick to that right now because you're going to be paying more. You want to know as much about that industry as you can because you're going to have to grow it so that you can exit it at some point. So I think that capital dynamic is going to remain for quite a while. So we're going to continue to see these really what we call frothy markets where prices are high and there's a lot of activity. Private equity investors and strategic buyers, those companies who are buying companies, have to be able to do the deals faster than ever, right? Because as competition speeds up, it's just like you buying your house and you have to say, okay, I'll skip inspection and I can close in 30 days.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing, right? People have to kind of lighten up on their inspection or they have to do it a little sooner and they're going to have to close sooner. So there's more uncertainty in what they're buying. Which is also the reason they want to stick to the industries they know. Now, I think, you know, if interest rates start to increase, which I think they're going to, long term, that could change some of the capital dynamic. Usually private equity investors get an allocation for like 7 years. So you could see the next rounds of fundraising that they do could be a little lighter in, you know, 3 to 5 years. But for now, we're planning on busy markets ahead for the next few years.
That is wonderful. And viewers, let's just say you heard it here first, okay, from the experts. So, well, I know I wanted to say thank you so much for your incredible amount of time. I do have one kind of totally different kind of question for you. Let's have a little fun for a second here on if you are having your fantasy dinner or fantasy lunch and you can invite one guest, living or not, past, present, future, who would that guest be and why?
Yeah, that's a really hard question because I think I have a list of like, you know, 20 people I would pick from. But I think in this instance, because we're talking about kind of customers and business, the person that I would pick would be Indra Nooyi, who is the former CEO of Pepsi. She was the first person of color and the first woman to run like a Fortune 50 company. She was an amazing leader who really was able to kind of suss out the signal from the noise. She was incredibly customer focused, took maybe not such popular strategic initiatives that people were a little concerned about based on her kind of focus on the customer and her she was like legendary for the amount of research and work that she did behind every new idea. I would love to sit down with her and talk to her about her. I think she was very brave, and she led an incredible growth at that organization. And she was incredibly innovative, and she took on roles in areas that she'd never done before in order to learn. So I'd love to talk to her more about her bravery and how she dug into new opportunities and how she leveraged and built partnerships to succeed.
That's great. Something I read about her recently was the incredible just EQ and EI that she had, just that emotional intelligence and how critical that was, you know, to the organization. And quite frankly, to anyone that's in leadership, how important that is. So, well, this has been a privilege. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, she did this great thing. I don't know if you know about it. And this is part of the reason I love her so much, right? She's not just a traditional leader where she just focused on the bottom line, right? She did care about the environment. She did care about her customers' health, but she wrote letters to the parents of people who worked for her, who were outstanding, to tell the parents how wonderful and how meaningful and impactful their children were. And over her career as CEO of PepsiCo, she wrote 400 letters to parents. Yeah, she was really groundbreaking in how she approached her leadership, and she wasn't encumbered by how people had done it before. And I think it's quite inspirational, and it's something we can learn from.
Boy, what a great thing to do. And it's so impactful.
Yeah. And as a parent who wouldn't love to get that letter, and as a person to be like, wow, you sent a letter to my parents? Wow. What a way to build a relationship with the people who work for you, and a spirit of kind of trust and gratitude and appreciation.
Incredible, impressive.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to dive in even more now based on that. So
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your valuable time today. This was great. And I hope we get to see each other live and in person one of these days.
I hope so too.
All right. Thank you so
much.
Thanks,
Brad. Take care.